you heard the rosin versus BHO, which is what's cleaner, rosin versus BHO argument?
I've definitely heard different perspectives on it. You know, like a lot that I talk to, they say that BHO is dirty because there's a solvent in it.
Yeah, that's that's bro. That's what we call bro science.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of facts about butane that people don't realize. Number one, it's not considered toxic. Number two, specifically the butane we use for extraction method is extremely clean. Not only is it some of the cleanest solvent out there, but we also take it a step further and do in-house distillation, and which is basically an in-house cleaning process of the gas. And the other thing that most people don't realize is when you smoke, so this was BHO, just so you know, this was live resin that you just tried. So when you do smoke BHO, if it's done right, you're not smoking butane. In fact, lighting a bowl of flour, you are inhaling way more butane than you do in a properly purged BHO. And so the other thing is, and the thing that most people I think play on, and back to the rosin versus BHO, what's cleaner? You were right about a few things about what's in rosin. But what most people don't realize is there are plant fats and plant waxes, lipids and paraffins inside those resin glands. So when you make rosin, there's almost no way to avoid those compounds. And what happens is it's not always good to smoke things that are high lipid, high paraffin, high fat, high wax. And a lot of people don't realize that. The thing that specifically live resin and BHO done right is filtration is submicron. So that's the first thing you got to know. And the second thing is when we run our stuff, we run at -60 degrees Celsius. So the majority of the fats and waxes in the product have been frozen and caught in filtration. So you're almost getting a fat-free, wax-free, and which is another reason why I've always hated the term wax. In the beginning, when we were extracting with warm or whatever room temperature butane, it definitely was wax, and it was a very waxy, high wax substance, and I think that's what kind of gave BHO a bad name.
Boy, man, the yields were good, though.
Oh, the yields were the 35% yields? Yeah. What the fuck? This stuff's sick for some 15% fucking flour.
You could fucking put a wick in it and fucking use it as a candle, bro.
Fucking candle makers.
That's funny.
But in fucking fast forward to the present, to the future, we extract cold as fuck. And we have gotten filtration down to, like I said, the submicron level. And so the end the end argument of the rosin versus BHO in cleanliness terms, looking at it from a chemistry and, what you should be inhaling or what you shouldn't be inhaling view, the live resin or the BHO wins.
For sure.
And
I can see why.
And that's one of those hammer down fucking science things that man, a lot of the rosin guys just aren't ready to swallow.
For sure. And I think also potentially too, like maybe the culture, like, so a lot of what I learned was from time spent in Mendocino County.
Of course.
And a lot of those guys are super, homesteady.
Yeah.
They care about their quality product, but it's not necessarily, it's the science of the soil and the environment necessarily, the fats and things like that, which is really interesting. It makes me think because, some people smoke and then they develop like an allergic reaction over a certain time. I wonder if it's because of certain things like that are involved that are not supposed to be smoked. And that's what caused that reaction.
Well, in full disclosure, we're really not supposed to smoke anything.
Well, yeah.
Combusting and vaporizing things, like your lungs are not designed to do that and really be top tier healthy.
For sure. Oil versus water doesn't really.
But, you know what I mean? There's that but of if I'm going to vaporize something, if I'm going to combust something, I want it to be as the clean as possible, chemically clean, and, you know, or just compound clean, you know, going down to like, what's in it? What am I burning? What am I vaporizing?
For sure. It's really important to ask, like, if you're consuming something, whether it's food or anything, what's in it? How's it been processed? And I think that's why I always promote the education of the farmer, trying to get in touch with people who are hands-on with the product. If you have a question, terpene-based, that you're looking for a medicinal benefit, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's beautiful to always, like, I've learned something listening to that. I'm more on the soil growing aspect of things.
Yeah, no, and I know, and
I'm learning, which is great though, because it makes me think on a different level when I'm growing of all those different things, like what to look for. Is there technology to look for fat percentages, lipids, and things like that you're talking about to maybe, like you said, filter them out? So maybe that live rosin, not that it competes with BHO, but that you are smoking a cleaner product. It's not a competitive thing, but it's a cleanliness thing.
Exactly. And, you know, and like I said, I love rosin. I smoke plenty of rosin. I don't want to get the wrong.
No,
I just showed you some beautiful rosin.
No.
I don't want to get the wrong attitude out there, but also it's so hard to hear the hate on BHO, you know? And I mean, if you really, you know, the funniest thing is, you know, the hydrocarbon thing is, you know, BHO is a hydrocarbon gas. We're hydrocarbon life forms. Terpenes and cannabinoids are hydrocarbons. Terpenes are a natural solvent. Excuse me. Terpenes are a natural solvent if you really want to get into it. So you got solvent in there. If it's terpene, it fucking tastes good. And so then I guess it comes down to, are we solvent racist or are we solvent discriminatory? Like,
I think it's ignorance.
Yeah.
To be 100% honest with you, because I've always promoted the live rosin because I'm thinking it's cleaner because of the solventless aspect. Understood that there are factors of going into the process. So one thing I never really considered was the quality of solvent that's being used.
Oh, 100%.
And how that is removed with the machines and the quality of machines, because there are different levels, different prices. So there are
and just like the quality of the water and the ice being used. You know, the old joke was, oh, your fucking rosin tastes like Allsup's ice. You know, Allsup's might have been known or not known for having the best tasting water and ice. But if you use that fucking ice and water to wash your product, those TDS, those total dissolved solids, and whatever else, fucking bacteria, you name it. Google it. I'm not a water guy. But all the fucking issues that could be in your water could end up in your hash.
For sure. And
you know you've tasted hash where you tasted that fucking water. So yeah, no, and you know, we use a great system. We use a chilled RO system with some extra, you know, secret filtration in there.
Yeah, totally.
That we can ensure we have a clean base and a clean starting point. Because we approach our water extraction much like we approach every other type of extraction or process in our facility. And we got to start fucking clean. The vessels are clean. The containers it's going to go in is clean. The solvent is clean. The fucking water is clean. The ice is clean. We know that we're not shit. The material's not shit if you fuck up everything else on the way there. And so, and that same thing goes for how you grow your plant. It's what's in your soil. You bet your ass. It's what you spray or don't spray on that plant. It's how you deal with pests. It's everything.
There's so many actual factors and questions that go into it that it becomes almost impossible to consider everything in that sense. So, but that's why it's important to have the relationships with individuals who are following their passion. They are really doing, you know, what they're called to do. And that's the variety of an industry. And I think that's a huge issue we might be headed towards.
Huge.
And I really think that people need to open their eyes to that. And yes, obviously cannabis is fun and it's community, but there are bigger people in control when it comes to like the state. And I'm sure they're doing the best that they can to their knowledge. But I also think that it would be helpful to have that interaction with, you know, people in the field with the people who are writing the legislation as well.
Be a little more specific. I kind of know where you're going with this, but for our listeners, what do you think is one or some of the biggest issues facing what you're talking about? The biggest issue, let me take that back. The biggest issue facing the small farmer with the regulation and the laws being written and so on.
1,000%. I think the biggest thing would be a pause in licensing. I don't think that having multiple producers in this industry here in New Mexico is going to be a hindrance.
We're growing too much weed. I believe so.
I think we're growing too much weed that's not good.
That too.
So I think, too. I mean, obviously, like we talk about the different levels of income, right? So not everyone can afford the top tier shit. So you got to think about that too as a farmer, as a producer. Like, what are you growing for that mid-level? Are you growing for top tier? And sticking with that, because that's gonna, if you're trying to jump around, that's not gonna really help you as a business, at least not from my model, because it's just me. I don't have employees. It's just me. I'm running 200 plants, usually 20 different genetics. So I'm not consistent with like results. It's always like F1s, different phenos, things like that. So like, with having to juggle that and an industry that's uneducated, it makes it really difficult for a small farmer. And when they put pauses on licenses, like for someone like me, if I can't renew, then I can't continue to like educate. I mean, I can on that level, but they can't try the product. I can't share that. I can't do what I want and I feel called to do. So me personally, it would really affect me if they did a pause on a license, because it's my livelihood.
So you think they should or shouldn't pause licensing?
I don't think they should. I think they should potentially look at the industry. Are they talking about licensing for producers? Are they talking about licensing as a whole? Because that's what I'm unfamiliar.
Because I was wondering because usually the stop licensing is the big guys argument. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't necessarily consider myself a big guy, but I mean, I'm physically big, but I want them to pause licensing for this reason. The market's oversaturated.
For growers or just in general?
In general.
Yeah.
I think you should pause licensing because I think the market's oversaturated. There's too much weed being grown, in my opinion, good or bad. It's mostly bad. I don't think there's ever too much good weed going, and there's too many manufacturers, there's too many retails. And it's not stopped. And so now a pause on licensing doesn't mean you can't renew, though.
That's what I was just going to ask. Because you have an existing, been growing for 2-3 years, 10 years or something like that, that's where I'm kind of like unknown in what the
cool.
What the outcome would be,
Well, and I think pausing on licensing.
I don't want to be biased, but it's like, I got a license. Let's put a pause on that shit,
Well, and so the little guy, I usually argues it because, well, hey, my buddy's still trying to get his license, and if you pause it, then he won't get a license. Or, hey, I kind of want to do a retail, but not yet, but maybe down the line.
Yeah.
And if they pause licensing, then I won't be able to do that.
For sure.
And so that's kind of the little guy's mentality about it. Or not even the little guy, like it's a bad thing.
It's the
mom and pop,
totally.
The smaller business. Which, like I said, Farmers is a mom and pop. It's just me and my wife. We started from nothing. And you got to think about and I think there's pros on both sides. I don't think there's many cons. I honestly don't, because right now, if you waited to get in the game, I'm sorry, you should have gotten the game, because I feel the game is established in this state.
Yeah.
And a lot of people came in that probably shouldn't have been.
For sure. And regardless of the fall off of other businesses, it's kind of like you said, like people who are there trying to create those relationships don't necessarily need, I mean, competition's great, but at the same time, oversaturation's not. Yeah. I haven't looked at the list of how many producers. The last time I looked, I think it was only like 600 or 700.
It's
maybe like that.
It's a lot. And the plant counts are fucking scary.
That's where I'm kind of like the plant count thing. Like,
that's another thing that's coming up to the table.
Yeah.
Not our table, but the round table.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I can only handle 200 plants. So I'm not even thinking about like.
Have you seen the plant count numbers?
20,000?
20s, 50s.
And I've got a farm down the road from me that's actually building, he says, apparently the largest like extraction facility in the state. And he's running like 25,000 plants or some shit. And it's like, you know, I'm not 100% sure, like quality wise, whatever, but for everybody, there's something. But I can't do that kind of level. So I'm not thinking about that, you know, but of the overall, what you're talking about legislation wise, something to consider.
Yeah, no. And I a lot's happening. And, you know, this market is brutal right now. And I think as all the business owners, all the cannabis business owners really need to think about what benefits them best, and they need to get their voices heard. Because the big guys have already had their voices heard, and they're going to go lobby and try to get whatever benefits them best. And so, no, I think if you are a small guy in this game, you better be fucking ready to fight, and you better be ready to make sure your voice is heard. Because at the end of the day, you know, what's going to happen is going to happen. And if you don't have a say in it, and you don't try to get a say in it, you're just going to have to do whatever the fuck they say.
I'll tell you what, you better have a little dog in you, because you're going to have to fight, but also be creative.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about growing flower now, you know, and that's just obviously due like how the market moves, how the consumer is educated on the flower. But yeah, you got to think of all kinds of different options, you know? And so, as a small farmer, I'm always consistently thinking about like how to be efficient, not necessarily expand, but like find those areas of niches. Like, is there room for like exclusives? Yeah. You know, because I'm a breeder, so I make my own strains.
So I guess we, you know, welcome to the farm table, obviously. And I guess we kind of segment into that part of the show where you introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do?
Yeah, totally. So I'm Josh Walker. I'm the owner of Sacred Soul Farm. It's just me and my wife. We're located in this little town called Limitar.
Nice.
But we're just north of Socorro. And I grew up in Roswell, New Mexico, born and raised. I left in 2013, moved a couple different states, owned a restaurant in Vermont for a while. That's what got me interested in like the whole cultivation of like self-sustainability. Yeah. And growing your own food, obviously your own medicine. Back then in Vermont, it was like $400 an ounce, and it was shit weed, like worse than the gas tank weed you'd get here in New Mexico. And because it was like moldy and all kinds of weird shit. But I'm very passionate about growing cannabis. I'm passionate about my family. I'm passionate about community. I think that this industry has a lot of room to grow in terms of collaborations, in terms of like healthy competition. But I think it's just going to battle out right now. And that's industry though. You know, I lived in California as well, where like you have these peaks and then you have these lulls where like you got to find out what you can do to make yourself last in those moments of like these kind of fallouts with prices. How does that affect? Because I mean, you're obviously a smaller operation. You said 200 plants earlier. Yeah. How does that affect you? The pricing is that just brutal on the small guys end? I think if you can find the right dispensary who's willing to potentially educate, because I do the internal light depth greenhouse, so it doesn't have the indoor look. Yeah, I mean it's super frosty. It's got the terps.
It's definitely got the terps. Everything you brought here smells great.
Yeah, thank you, man. And so like that's where I'm kind of work the market is like it doesn't look like indoor, so I can't get the price for that. You know what I mean? And so it's like I have to grow more than at that point. Yeah. Or like I said, trying to do different avenues that are not just based off of flower sales. Yeah. You know, so for me, I'm trying to find washers, trying to find the hash, trying to find the rosin makers.
Which is a fucking nightmare.
It is, man. Like you get like biggest one out of like 75. It's wild. Yeah.
You know, there was a time and
it's wild.
You know, in the beginning of kind of when rosin was coming out and you know, hash had obviously been here for years, but rosin was kind of a newer thing. And people started kind of focusing on what washed or not. And yeah, dude, in the beginning, there was like, I mean, people claim there was like five to seven strains out of all the fucking strains that actually washed. And so now it's obviously more than that, but it's extremely hard to find something that'll produce a large amount of rosin on, you know, and in scale. And what most people don't get is it's so specific to the genetics and the way the plant produces its resin head and stalk or neck that resin gland is connected to.
For sure.
And it also comes down to the size of that resin gland. And you know, so there's so much that goes into actually finding something that produces that perfect, you know, rosin run and that yield that doesn't make you want to fucking cry, you know, the 1% club.
Yeah, but that's kind of how you get there is like you kind of find those ones that are shit.
Yeah.
But then the one next to it just tends to dump. But
that was an old BHO joke. The BHO extractors would tell the fucking rosin boys that they were in the 1% club.
Yeah. That's funny.
And yeah, for those of you that don't get it, yeah, a lot of these strains will give you a 1% yield when washing them, or some less than 1%. Whereas like that same material in a BHO live extraction will give you 6 to 8%. Live actually, you know, and the reason people get confused about live yields is 75% of that is water weight.
Right.
The plant has not been dried out. The plant has not been cured. So the plant is mostly water, just like your fucking 70, what is it, 70 some percent water.
About same thing.
So is the plant.
For sure.
And yeah.
Yeah. And we're not even talking about potential environment either.
Of course.
Where you're talking about like, you know, I said I do greenhouse, there's indoor, there's total outdoor. In New Mexico, if you're doing total outdoor, I don't care where you're at, you're just, you know, putting yourself in an uphill battle.
Stab at you can't stab at the outdoor boys during harvest season.
Not at all. I mean, their terps are great. I get it. But it's like, oh my God, the UVs. And I grew up here. I understand. It's just hot.
So explain what the outdoor farmer battles, in your opinion, that makes you want to say that.
Yeah, totally. So like if you're in the northern part of the state, you got a short growing season.
Okay.
You know, there's frost that you have to deal with on the front and back end of the seasons.
Freezing before you take it down.
For sure. And like you might deal with less bugs because your altitude, but you know, then you start talking about lower altitude, you got bugs depending on where you're at. I'm in an agricultural belt right by the Rio. So there's grasshoppers, there's aphids, there's thrips, all the airborne things. You know, so you're really having to monitor a lot heavier, or you're having to do IPMs that are either organic practices, or you're spraying things that are just going to get you there through the season so you can have a harvest.
For the non-growers, define IPMs. What does that stand for?
Yeah, implemented pest management.
Awesome.
Yeah, so like that's when you're kind of prepping whether you're using predator bugs, sticky pads, if you're using sprays like Monterey BT that are like Omari listed. But, you know.
So IPM isn't the bad word. It's what you do as a practice for IPM that could or not be considered bad practice.
1,000%.
Because obviously if you go in there and, what's a bad one? Eagle 20. If you go in there and dump fucking Eagle 20 on your plants as your IPM 7, whatever, that's a bad practice. If you go in there and release fucking ladybugs and praying mantises,
for sure,
that's a, you know, super organic, like,
for sure.
But those insects shit too,
for sure.
You know what I mean? Those insects, you're still having insects on the weed.
1,000%.
So, you know, there could be a little fucking
exoskeleton or like
exactly,
yeah, totally,
a fucking little
turd
a wing
from a caterpillar or something. Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Now, you know, I was telling Jesh before the show that, you know, my spirit animal nowadays is that guy that comes on and he's like, I don't give a fuck if there's red 40 in these fucking Doritos. They're delicious. I used to do fucking whatever, snort coke off a fucking toilet seat in a porta potty at a festival. And and I say he's my spirit animal because, man, at the end of the day, there's a certain level of I don't give a fuck when it comes to like what I'm consuming, and it's not just me, it's everybody in this fucking world. But there's also a certain level where you're like, oh fuck, what's in that? What do you use? You got rid of those aphids, how? And you start thinking about how that chemical could possibly affect your cognitive state, or your fucking having cancer down the road, or whatever. Yeah. And it does start making you think like, oh fuck, maybe I'm not that fucking psycho red 40 guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe I do give a fuck. Maybe I do want to see my kids get old. And maybe I do want to consider what I'm fucking consuming and what I'm taking in.
For sure.
From the smoke I smoke, which I probably shouldn't be fucking doing because smoking anything is not good. And to the food I eat, to the dabs I do. You know what I mean? What am I putting in my body, and what are the long-term effects of?
For sure.
A through Z.
Yeah. IPM is never a bad thing. It's, for me, I use it as a preventative, like it helps me organize a list of things that I can do throughout the season, even being in a greenhouse, I believe that a healthy garden has a diversity of insects, whether that's the predator bugs, because they have to eat something. They're not just eating plants, right? Like they have to eat bugs and other things.
Well, and plants have fucking insects.
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me. Go, what is it? What's a good one? Peanut butter. Go look at peanut butter and look at how, go down to the bottom. Cereal. Go down to the bottom of the box, and there's a good point you're going to see, might have this much fucking insect fucking parts in it. Or, is susceptible to so much per fucking whatever, roach fucking heads. I don't know, roach legs. Like, there is insects in growing things, from tomatoes to cherries to cannabis to fucking kale to, goddamn broccoli. Whatever.
Fruit trees.
Whatever. Yeah. There's fucking to milk production, not, to get into something really, gross that we do as creatures.
They don't use the iodine. That's dirty shit, man. You can get super sick from something like that.
So
I drink raw milk, from a local dairy. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
It's amazing.
You're a beast.
I love it.
I'm drinking raw milk before. It's good. And I wasn't scared or anything, but it's very hard to obtain. You know what I mean?
1,000%.
Yeah. So,
yeah. It's like local sourcing in that sense.
So you're a real hippie.
Yeah, for sure. I lived on a mountain, dude. So I'll put it in perspective for you. My wife and I, we've been together for 10 years. And so we lived on the farm together, but there was 10 other people. We lived in one house, one shower. The way that we farmed, he was an autoflower breeder. So we were having thousands of plants going at a time. He had like 400 or 500 males in an open pollination garden. So learned how to like collect pollen, do all that breeding and different things like that. But yeah, man, living on an off-grid solar house, you really have to learn how to be like self-sufficient and sustainable.
So you're
like
off-grid.
Sourcing. And so sourcing and things like that. Like, obviously not going to starve ourselves. There's a store. You can go to the fucking store. It's not like you're up there like, man, I'm going to fucking live it out, Like,
it's pickled fucking beets for the whole winter, kids.
Potatoes and carrots. Yeah. For sure. No. So no, we had access to things. I'm not saying like we were like in the middle of nowhere, like we were in the mountains, but yeah, like different perspective. You know what I mean? It changed my lifestyle really. Like I still eat the hot Cheetos.
Yeah.
Like I know there's shit.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. Like, so you know what I mean by that guy being
there's cheat days.
Animal.
Yeah. There's cheat days for sure, man.
That's cool. And so and you grow the same way at the farm.
1,000%. Yeah. So like what they call, it's like a regenerative style farming. And there's principles. The regenerative is just like restoration and sustaining of land in a natural way.
Okay.
So like a lot of the agricultural farmers, they'll till up the ground. You'll see that, right?
Yeah.
And so like
so you're no-till dude.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going on year 2 with no-till.
What's the percentage of commercial growers that are doing that?
That's a good question, because what, like no-till you mean, or just like living soil? Because no-till is like where you're
it's similar to living soil, right? I mean, you obviously build up your soil with living soil.
It's a part of the practice, right? So like the no-till aspect is that you're not disturbing the microbes and the biology within the soil. And so like that remains intact, mycelium, all of those different things, roots. The way I harvest is I leave the root system, is because those roots that are already existing leave nutrients and pathways, so that when you replant in those same beds, those new roots are finding those same pathways, feeding off those leftover nutrients.
Yeah.
And all those different things. So you're doing like dry amendments, all that shit. I'm not touching the soil in terms of like trying to get underneath unless I'm digging a hole to put a plant in there. We do cover crops, all that shit.
I can, as a connoisseur, I can always taste And like I said before, I'm a heavy smoker, so I usually need some funk to fucking taste. And always taste when it's living soil. And the reason I can usually tell is because there's more terps, there's more flavonoids. It's not that I can taste the fucking soil.
Right.
You know, it's not that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can taste that the plant was thriving where it needed to produce the flavors and aromatics that I like, you know, or that I think people are attracted to.
Peak fitness, you know what I mean? Like you're not overdoing it where you're like steroids that shit, but like,
is that scalable? Could you do 20,000 plants these way?
If you're doing it in ground,
with an army, obviously.
If you're doing it in ground, for sure.
Okay.
Smart people do smart pots.
Yeah.
I think that's doable, but you have to leave it in there. You don't replace it every year. You do cover crops. I think Cannabis does something similar like that.
Everest used to have some beast soil, bro.
But I'm not really sure where they're at these days. Been a few years, but
I haven't been to Everest in a long time. But
no, Cannabis.
Yeah,
okay. Cannabis. Yeah, up by Farmington and kind of.
I know the boys at Animus. Yeah.
Ethan over there.
Yeah, they're pretty hippie too, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Y'all look like you could be cousins.
No doubt. No.
No, those guys are cool, man.
They do some things like that too, you know, like so. But there's a thing, right? So some people say they do living soil and it's salt based.
Yeah,
I don't like the synthetics and things like that. I use fish emulsion.
Yeah,
but that's for like veg, and I feed my plants with 2 liquid feeds.
Do you have a pond? Do you have like a pond in the whole nine? Okay,
that's what I'm trying to get.
So you're buying the fish emulsion.
Yeah, so I use
cool.
I use the Alaskan fish oil.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can buy that shit from Walmart.
Yeah. I guess you need a pretty extensive operation to create your own fish emulsion.
That's the goal, right? Is to become single source where you are using like compost, things like that from the local area to where you build that terroir where you're talking about where you maximize the terpenes and everything within that plant so that like even if it's not a high THC, it's a really medicinal flower that you're smoking.
Yeah.
You know, so.
No, I'm with it, man. And, you know, cannabis is an accumulator. So, you know, they use it to clean up fucking radioactive sites. They planted a bunch at Chernobyl.
Is amazing for that, cleaning toxic soil and shit.
Yep. And so, that in mind, whatever the fuck you're putting into it, whatever the fuck you're amending in it, that's what it's soaking up. That's what it's pulling in. So, you know, the more natural, you know, I can see the more appeal. Now, granted, most of these chemicals or whatever start off as something natural that they fucking made, you know, whatever, threw a little science at and got it refined. So it doesn't mean that, you know, every chemical's bad, but yeah, you know what I mean? You got to know what the fuck you're putting in your plants. You got to know what the fuck you're not even putting into your plants, how you're treating your plants, what goes into your soil, what goes into the fucking environment around your farm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know who's doing some dope shit is Caballo Gas Company. Those like the prickly pear ferments.
Yeah.
That they did.
So who is Caballo Gas Company? I noticed they're I thought it was possibly you.
No. So that's Bo and Shannon.
Okay. I haven't met them.
Yeah. So they're down kind of near, I guess Caballo is the town.
Yeah.
It's by TRC, kind of in that area. So a little bit south of Albuquerque for a few hours, but yeah, they're doing some cool shit over there, man. Like,
what did you say? You said prickly pear?
Yeah, prickly pear ferment. So like Bo will take the prickly pears, he'll throw them in with the labs, and I'm still learning all of these things too. So like as nutrient for the plant. Yeah, for nutrient for the plant. So like with the prickly pear with all the sugars, it kind of acts as like, you know, a synthetic molasses, if you will, but it's organic. It's from New Mexico. It's from those prickly pear cactuses that are around their property. So like that adds to the terroir, which is enhances.
We better check with him, make sure you can give out his tech like that. We'll check with him again, get back to Jesh.
No, Bo's really cool, man. He's super grounded. They grew up out there. It's their family land. So like they're kind of the grassroots example doing all of this regenerative practices as well. So
cool. Just homies of yours?
Yeah, for sure. Nice. I met them through the industry. Kind of like, you know, I've been following you guys for like 4 or 5 years through my personal, then through my commercial account, things like that. So yeah.
It's hard to find. Let's put it this way. There's a lot of fucking people to meet in the industry, but it's really hard to find friends. And we'll cut the line right there. and we won't be mean about it, but it's really hard to find friends in the industry. There's lots of people in the industry, lots of great people.
Are you saying the industry isn't friendly?
I don't know, man. I don't know. They'll smile in your face, Josh, but is it friendly? Is a smile always friendly? That is I think the real question. And I think the answer is not always.
I don't think so.
You know what I mean?
I think people will utilize others to get where they need to be, and then they'll kick them to the side.
Correct. And, you know, I think that's just a trait that we don't really like to follow here. There's, you know, we've made it to where we have without stepping on a single fucking person. I sleep great every single night knowing I don't owe anybody fucking shit. I haven't done anybody fucking wrong. I ain't got to look over my fucking shoulder. There's plenty of fucking haters out there. Bet your fucking ass, a line of them, but they ain't got no fucking credibility. You know what I mean? They ain't got no fucking credibility. You look at the hater and dig a little deep, and more than likely I was nice to that person.
That's their job, though.
You know what I mean? And I was cool to that person, and yeah, they fucked me some way and turned that into some sort of hate.
For sure.
You know, so no, it's really cool to have friends in the industry. I didn't know, like I said, I thought it might have been you or a partner because they were showing you love on
for sure
social media. So shout out.
That's how the small
Caballo Gas Company.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
And Shannon, man.
Hell yeah,
they're crushing it.
Hell yeah. So what's next? What's next for your farm?
Yeah, so for me, I'm really now that I've kind of got the build out complete, 3/4 complete, to where I can just kind of focus more on the growing aspect. The way that I've built my beds, I can deprivation each individual bed. So that way, if I have different strains that are flowering at different times, I don't have to do the entire greenhouse at once.
That's pretty cool. I've never heard of that concept.
Yeah. So it was like thinking, I don't have the space for enough moms at the moment to produce, 200 at once to go out into the greenhouse. So I was doing individual beds, cycling in, and that didn't really work for the quantity that I needed in order to actually have a successful business. And so, yeah, for me, I'm really just trying to focus, like I said, on potential washers, really unique flower that I'm trying to bring to the table that obviously is like market demandable with THC numbers, but I'm looking for high terpenes. I think most of these, the flower that we've got going on here is testing in like the 3% terp range. And I'm trying to dial that in as well as like kind of perfect where the peak is for the flower aspect of things. And yeah, man, it's just been a journey for sure. So me, I'm just trying to focus on that and potential collaboratives. I'm just trying to do what I can do, to try to stay afloat. I'm not really in it to be personal and bully people. Like, I'm all about collaboration. And
you don't look like a bully.
I'm trying to make fucking money, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you're talking about the friendship, it's like, I want to make friends, but I also want to make money because like my friends ain't going to feed my family. You know what I mean? So like, I just got to focus on the business aspect of things, but also be like honest and authentic through the way, like not being nice. I don't want to be like confused with like, I'll stand up if I have to, I
think you brought up a really good point there. And I think as we get older, we a lot of times separate our relationships into these relationships make me money. These relationships are friendships. These relationships are people I don't like, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any reason why you can't find friends and make money with them.
I agree.
And I think a true friend is going to say your name in any room you're not in.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And I think about it when I'm talking to somebody and I'm like, oh, guess what? My friend does this, or, my buddy's got this or something. I'm literally waiting to hear an opportunity to plug one of my friends.
For sure.
And I think that, yeah, granted, I may not be handing them fucking money, but you bet your ass somebody needs, some videos and fucking photo work. I'm gonna plug Jesh.
Opportunities.
Unless, of course, it's one of my competitors. Y'all fucking stay away from him. But no, I'm just kidding. But no, if somebody needs, a service that I know Jesh can provide, and Jesh could make, an extra fucking, whatever, fucking five grand on the fucking weekend.
Yeah, no doubt.
Why wouldn't I plug him?
No doubt.
You know what I mean? I want him to do good just as much as I want myself to do good or anybody in my fucking circle.
For sure, man.
So I think like developing those friendships that can lead to success and that can kind of lead to a group of successful people, because hey, yeah, everybody will say each other's name in those rooms where they're not at. And I think that becomes a really powerful networking, tool, that if you are making good relationships in any industry, and those relationships do turn into friendships, those people actually like you and you have something to value, that those relationships can turn into fucking money, and they can turn into your own success. You know, a lot of times just by not being a piece of shit and fucking being an honestly good person and being able to communicate and make friends.
I was just going to say, communication is one of the hardest things apparently, because there's a lot of lack of communication, and that's what dissolves relationships on whatever level.
That's what creates wars.
It's wild to me, just the lack of it, and just being authentic. Like if you have something that's negative, like, yo, like I'm not going to be able to pay you for another couple weeks. Like I know I'm supposed to slide you that today, but you know, like shit comes up, but then it's like, that's where the relationship is kind of based off of, right? Like how well can you be told the truth and stand in that and be like, all right, cool, like, but I'm going to need something, or however that works.
It's one thing to be told that, and then to see that same person, you know, on a fucking vacation 2 days later on their Instagram, and it's like, hey, I thought you couldn't fucking pay me that money you owe me. And so
that's when when you cut that shit, because it's like, I mean, talk to them, like maybe communicate your feelings and see how they reciprocate that. But I've done that with friends, and they literally are like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do and how to talk to you. And I'm like, all right, man, later.
Dude, I've had people that owed me fucking money, and they came to me and told me they were doing fucking bad and that they weren't gonna fucking eat that day or whatever. And I realized it was fucking true, and I gave them more money. You know what I mean? Because not giving a fuck if they paid me back at that point, but
real life struggle.
It was exactly. And so who am I to think of, you know, okay, you owe me $100 fucking bucks, but you said what? You didn't eat today? Yeah. Hold on, bro. I'll fucking cash app you. Like, chill the fuck out.
Good intention like that's going to come around. You probably get paid tenfold for some. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of the person, you know, I will not name any names, but speaking of the person that happened recently, it took about a week, 2 weeks. I didn't really think about it, but he walked up to me and handed me $200. And, you know, the 100 was for, I don't know, week or two before, and you know what I mean? And it was no big deal. It was a hug and fucking, but that's a friend. You know what I mean? And that's somebody, if, you know, he was worried about owing me fucking money. And that was silly. You know what I mean? But it's the motherfuckers that don't give a shit about owing you money that'll either call you and lie to you, and they have it in their fucking right in front of them, or they'll just ghost you because they're too chicken shit to be like, well, fuck, bro, fucking your money I owe you is not fucking a priority to me. And our relationship that we have is not fucking important enough to just fucking ante up and fucking maybe sacrifice a little to just pay you what I fucking owe you. So yeah, no, it's
but business and personal, right? Like there's a lot of mixture going on with that. And I'm not gonna name things too, but like, yeah, there's a lot of that in the industry for sure. And with farmers, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, but that's why it's important to stick together, man. Like I'm gonna try and help you until you do me wrong. Like, I don't care if you don't share my shit. If you win seeds in my giveaway, I don't need you to post about it. I don't need you to give me clout. I don't need that. I'm not doing it for that reason, you know?
But if you made an impact on them, you know, there's nothing wrong with them giving you credit.
I love it. I'll take all the compliments in the world, man. You know what I mean? I'm not saying,
but you're definitely not doing it.
I'm not saying no, don't do that. Like, shout me out for sure. Yeah.
But well, and you know, it's,
but yeah, it's like, that's not the only reason for doing that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like for me, having to separate the morals and the business ethic has been a really difficult task, but I'm in the moment to where like, I'm just like, you know, like I know what my morals, but that's not anything related to how I'm going to have a successful business. So
yeah,
let's fucking get it, you know?
So what, here's an off question. What's your favorite strain right now? What tickles your fancy? What have you tasted that was your favorite lately?
I don't have it here, but Wookie Tangy
Okay.
Which is Wookiee cookies crossed with a Tangy OG. And it like goat cheese with a funky wet gym sock. Like what we were talking about, super raunchy shit.
Okay.
So I really like that.
What's the feel on it? How's the high on it?
Yeah. So around the ocular nerves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And body high sits you down.
Yeah.
Like it's dummy weed is what I call it.
Nice.
Yeah. So like, I think I smoked some with Veronica and Matt from High Maintenance.
High Maintenance, cool.
Yeah. And I think that they had plans that night and we all just decided to say, fuck it, and sat around because it just, hit just like it needed to.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I think Wookiee Tangy is a good one, but that's like the funky. I know there's different profiles. On the fruity scale, I'd probably say I'm kind of liking this Velvet Coffee. It's got like that navel orange and a little bit of honey going on. So yeah, I'd definitely roll some of that up if we got some papers, but.
Hell yeah. Yeah, for sure. Where can people find your products if they do want to try your specific flower?
Yeah, totally. So as at the moment, I've just got what I call soul rolls, and it's a combination of either indicas, sativas, or hybrids. And I obviously keep them separated, but they're just combinations that come from my R&D bed when I'm looking for different things for washers, flour, whatever. So you can find those at Thrive, as well as Casa Verde down in Cruces.
Nice.
Yeah, and flour right now, I'm still waiting on it to cure a little bit, but hopefully soon. I'm going to hit a couple places in Albuquerque, trying to go on the east side of the state. I don't really have any select dispensaries that I'm looking at. I just really want my flour to be represented in a well way.
So let's say one of our many followers owns a dispensary and they see you on the show and they want to get a hold of you and they want to try your flower. How do they get a hold of you?
For sure. sacredsoulfarm@gmail.com.
Okay.
Or they can hit up my Instagram handle, which is sacred_soul_farm. And soul is spelled SOL.
Hell yeah.
And that's kind of how I grow. A little bit of sun grown. I call it mixed light because you're doing light plus the sun. So you get a little bit of both, but best worlds, you know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
So
we'll come to a closing here, but what is the best thing you think could happen for the New Mexico cannabis industry?
Really, I feel like it would be, regardless of personal vendettas that you have with other places, when it comes to legislation stuff, really be involved, because that's where the decisions are made. And that's the rules that we're going to have to follow as a business. And so it's really important to either voice your opinion, show up to these meetings to understand what's going on outside of like
unity as an industry.
1,000%.
Yeah. So
a unity.
Man, I think that's a great point. I think unity as an industry could really benefit New Mexico. And I think if we came together as an industry and went to the state and presented ourselves to the state and really broke down the actual issues, I think we would have a better
New Mexico could have a thriving cannabis market. There's like the consumer, I think, is there. There's enough variety with growers and product around that I think that, yeah, unity would bring everything just top tier, man, for sure.
I think, in my opinion, I'll give you my answer to that question is, I think the best thing that could happen to the New Mexico cannabis industry or the New Mexico cannabis market would be for not only the retail level, but truly the consumer level to really go after quality, and for people to really choose quality over the like you mentioned before, the horrible stuff, the really gross shit that is on the shelf at a lot of places. And I think when the consumer base and the retail base really turns and says, man, this stuff is rough. Like we can't buy any more of this shit. We gotta, order stuff that's a little better, that's on a better shelf. I think the industry will truly do better as a whole.
For sure. I hope retailers are open to having conversations with farmers who are not just doing, all indoor shit. And I'm not talking shit to indoor growers because there's a niche for it, but I'm just saying, like, just talk to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think this market loves outdoor. I think it loves greenhouse, and I think it loves indoor. I think, honestly, to tell you the truth, and, I got a couple friends that would probably agree, I think some of the hardest stuff to sell right now is top quality indoor in top quality anything.
Yeah.
Because people want it fast and fucking cheap.
Yeah.
And yeah, if that is the funkiest outdoor out there, you know what I mean? A lot of times they're like, fuck it. Let's go.
I'll leave you with something
and
too.
Not a good funky.
Yeah, for sure. I'll leave you with something. So I find it funny as a farmer that I have to bring my top quality product to a retail, yet the retailer wants to pay me low dollar for a high quality product. I just don't understand
every
that.
time.
And so hopefully that's the conversation that can be had, so we can like come to a medium to where like the consumer is paying a reasonable price. You're still meeting your bottom lines and capital, and we can all work it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I think there is that, you know, medium. I think there is that level where everybody can work it out and we can still make a living off what we're doing. And the other people, the other retails and the other people involved can make a living off what they're doing. So hell yeah.
Sure.
Thank you for coming
Appreciate
down, man.
You, man.
Really good to have you.